I've been watching movies and TV shows for as long as the next guy, and I will admit that my last 36 years in practicing fencing has left me somewhat hypercritical of any sword fighting choreographies in these shows that are demonstrated. You know, the things like, is something feasible or isn't it? Would a person actually react this way as opposed to reacting that way? You get the idea. Well, over the last 36 years, though, I've also noticed in these TV shows and movies certain indicators that would spell out potential in a person as to whether or not they would make an actual good swordsman. Meaning, if you were to put a sword and you were to train one of these actors in how to actually defend themselves with a blade, which of them would be the best at it? And today, I'm going to share with you some of my opinions on who I think would make actual good swordsmen. So the first actor that I think would make an actual good swordsman is that of Michael Jai White. Now, normally for a discussion such as this, I wouldn't go to an actor who already has a background in the martial arts because that shows that they already have self-discipline. They obviously have some talent for whatever it is in that particular art that they are practicing. But in this particular case, I had to break that rule because of the fact that I came across a video on YouTube where Michael was giving a lesson on tells to the other actors on the set of Blood and Bone. Now, while he was giving that lesson, it was just absolutely striking to me because of the fact that the lesson he was giving them on tells is the exact same lesson that I give to my students, except obviously from a fencing perspective. He was talking about the tells that emanate from the body and how it gives so much time, and how if you give no tells whatsoever, you can travel so much more slowly and still be able to strike the target. In this particular instance, he was using Kimbo Slice as his demonstration partner, where he had Kimbo Slice hold up his hand, and he basically just did a straight jab as fast as he possibly could, and Kimbo was able to get out of the way, no problem. But then when he slowed it down and gave no tells, he was moving at maybe a fifth of the speed that he was moving before, and he hit his hand like it was nothing, like it was, well, standing still. So in this particular instance, because of the fact that he has such an understanding of tells, and not to mention, of course, yes, he's got a background in the martial arts already, so it shows that he does have the ability, the skills, the mindset for it. All I can say is that if I was to be training Michael Jai White in rapier combat, I don't think it would be very long before we started seeing him in the medal rounds of any HEMA tournament around the world. So another actor that I think would make a good actual swordsman is that of Kate Beckinsale. Now, mind you, I didn't pick her because she's smoking hot, I promise. It actually has to do with the fact that she is highly intelligent and has a sense of adventure where she will throw herself into a situation with wild abandon. And when it comes to learning something like a combat art, especially when you're talking about bladed combat arts, that is something that is a critical detail. It's an indicator that every swordsman who has the potential to become a great swordsman has to have. Now, she has certainly demonstrated athleticism too. I mean, we've seen that in her movies like Underworld, where she has demonstrated a great deal of athleticism. However, that alone is not indicator enough to demonstrate whether somebody would or would not. But that intelligence that she has, and she is highly intelligent, that sense of humor, and again, speaking to that wild sense of adventure that she's got, those are very good indicators that somebody is going to be good when it comes to something like fencing as a martial art. The third actor that I think would make the best actual swordsman would be that of Henry Cavill. Now, the reason for that is not because of the Witcher series or any of the sword fighting choreographies that he was a part of, nothing to do with that. But instead, I'm talking about his self-discipline, which is obviously something that you've got to have. He has demonstrated a self-discipline that goes beyond what most actors, I think, have, but also in particular, and this is a key aspect, his imagination. He has a creative aspect to his personality, and all you got to do is just look up a biography on the guy, and you'll see this as just as a part of his hobbies and the things that he is interested in. That creative aspect, that imagination, is a key indicator that somebody is going to be a good swordsman. It's not the only one, and it's certainly not the one that determines by itself whether or not someone will or will not be good with steel. But nonetheless, when you're talking about becoming the best swordsman, when you're talking about rising up above your fellows, that creative aspect, that imagination is absolutely key, and Henry Cavill has definitely demonstrated that he possesses that in spades. My last nomination for an actor who I think would make the best actual swordsman is that of Eddie Murphy. As I mentioned earlier, imagination is a critical component if you're going to become one of the best swordsmen out there, and Eddie Murphy is nothing if not imaginative. But on top of it, he is also very clever and quick. The guy has a mind that is capable of moving in split seconds. I mean, and I imagine that's probably a key indicator too, that he would make him a great comedian. If you're going to be a comedian, you would obviously want to have that as a trait. But when it comes to fencing, being able to make those split second decisions, being able to exercise the self-discipline that he obviously has, but like I said, that imagination, that creative aspect to his personality, that coupled with his demonstrated athleticism that he's done in numerous movies, I think would make him an ideal candidate and gives him a great deal of potential as a swordsman in whatever weapon he decided to pick up. Now, that said, I would like to also put out a couple of honorable mentions. And the only reason that I say this is because I haven't seen enough of them in order to make an accurate assessment as to whether or not these individuals would make good swordsmen or not. But from what I have seen, they certainly have some of the traits that you would need in order to be such. Now, the first person I would nominate for that would be Brad Pitt. Not because of the fact that I have seen him as far as whether or not he's got the imagination. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him to be able to say that for sure. But he definitely has the athleticism, but more than that, in the way that he moves. He's able to pull off a sword fight in a choreography. When you're talking about the movie Troy, for example, he does make a believable swordsman, and he made a very good Achilles in that role. And to do that, you're going to have that athleticism, and you have to be able to make the moves look believable. And he does. He has that ability to pull off the forms. The second person that I would say is also a good honorable mention is that of Tom Cruise. Now, again, I don't know enough about his personality-wise in order to say whether or not he is quick-witted enough, whether or not his mind works fast enough. But the guy definitely has an ability to move with an extreme amount of grace. The guy practices, he has the self-discipline, obviously, to do what he does. But in order to move that way, you have to have a certain mastery of your own self. And Tom Cruise has definitely demonstrated that he has that ability within him. And that is one of the indicators you would need to determine whether or not somebody has the potential to truly become a great swordsman.